week. And we start with this story here, the first story on the front page, quite sad. It's in regards to women and girls' abuse of drug for abortion. So it has emerged that one of the common abortion drugs, whose name has been withheld for public health safety concerns, was originally meant to treat ulcers and is supposed to be sold only with a prescription. But now that is not what is actually happening. People can just go casually stroll into a chemist in Nairobi and other major towns and get this particular drug without a prescription and no questions asked for that matter. We'll be looking at that particular story here in a bit. Coming to the next story here, death in the casino, the story behind Sport Pesa. Looking back to the 14th of December 2015, Dick Wathika is invited for a meeting to thrash out the issues at Phoenix Casino. Before it ended, he collapsed. What more happened? We'll be coming to those stories in a bit. Coming to the main story here on the front page of the Daily Nation, isolated Raila fights back. Is it a question of a race within the ODM party, or what is it really? With Mr. Odinga being very ambivalent about a fifth presidential run, and now he's faced with the possibility that while his NASA partners are unlikely to return to his camp, he is keen to ward off supremacy wars and ensure that other regional kingpins stick firmly by him as we gear up for the 2022 general elections. And there's also a piece here that has been captioned "Exposed." Dramatic much, but it talks about a report that was put together by a technical team within the One Kenya Alliance, where it featured the principles of the One Kenya Alliance movement, and it outlined the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats of each of these principles, as well as the alliance, and advised it on the best way to navigate the political landscape as we gear up for the 2022 general elections. Finally, on COVID, child infections, a new cause for concern, as a study that was published by scientists from the Imperial College in London. It's still pending peer review, but it says that the Delta variant affects children more than the Alpha and the Beta variants. We'll be coming to those stories in a bit. Vic.
All right. And on to the Standard newspaper here. Raila DP go flat out with intense tours. That is as far as the 2022 presidential campaigns are concerned. In the last 2 weeks, Ruto, ODM leader Raila Odinga, ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi have been crisscrossing the country, leaving nothing to chance as they show up support, build networks in town halls, meetings, church services and rallies. That is on the front page of the Standard. And of course, Raila Odinga there in Mombasa, and Deputy President William Ruto yesterday was in Machakos County meeting the locals there. Okay, that is on the front page of the Standard. And here again, Huduma number may die in 8 days. Now, this follows National Assembly's failure to rescue law on which it is anchored, as well as 22 other controversial statutes which courts wanted regulated. So that is according to the Huduma number. I'll give you more details briefly. So Chief Justice Martha Koome says that she will prioritize 400 corruption cases, and at least 70% of the land cases in the country are still pending in Nairobi. Chief Justice Martha Koome yesterday said that Environment and Lands Court has 13,500 pending cases, with Nairobi leading with 9,500 cases. Lands Court has 9 fully fledged registries in Nairobi, Kisumu, Kericho, Nyeri, Mombasa, Eldoret, Nakuru, Bungoma and Malindi. So Justice Koome said that the expert judges to settle cases within 3 years, and she expects rather judges to settle cases within 3 years, and appeals should take 1 year. That is as far as that is concerned. And during her swearing in and during her interview, she said that her main agenda is to reduce the backlog of cases in the courts. Now, Ruto and Raila now go flat out to contest top seat, which either can afford to lose. The two, both students of Mzee Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, are consequential politicians, energetic and in their approach, daring and engaging. So political masters, technicians, grassroots mobilizers, and hitherto political bedfellows turned bitter rivals. Deputy President William Ruto and ODM leader Raila Odinga are preparing for a titanic battle in next year's general election with increased forays across key battlegrounds. There you have it. So it's a full page of that story and how they intend to go flat out to campaign for next year's poll. Still on politics, Row rocks Ford Kenya in bid to kick out Wetangula. Now the power tussle in Ford Kenya has taken a new twist after two members restarted a bid to kick out Bungoma Senator Moses Wetangula from the party's leadership. That is Kandui MP Wafula Munyinyi, excuse me, and Tongaren's Eselis Miu reignited their feud with Wetangula in a meeting held on Tuesday, where they accused him of misrepresenting interest of the party. Wamunyinyi and Eseli control a faction of the party that does not recognize Wetangula as the party leader and led a National Executive Council meeting last year that disposed of the senator. Now, in the meeting with the county leaders, the duo called for a national delegates conference to end the party's leader's reign. So they expect, and they said that they don't recognize Senator Wetangula as the bona fide chairman of the party leader of Ford Kenya, and therefore they want him to stop making any transaction on behalf of that particular party. Okay, and for those people, there's some story here. Expect internet interruptions as fiber optic cables is moved. That is according to the Ministry of ICT, which will relocate the fiber optic cable along the excuse me, Nakuru Mau Summit Road to pave way for construction of 160 billion shillings dual carriage that kicks off in September. Now, the road project is aimed at expanding the two-lane Nairobi to Mau Summit Highway into a four-lane dual carriageway. The stakeholders, there was a stakeholders meeting yesterday and in Limuru, and the ICT Principal Secretary Jerome Ocheng said that the cable will be relocated permanently in the 240 kilometers that will be affected. So the construction will begin in the next 6 weeks, and there will be disruptions during that particular period. So for those people who use that particular service in that region, you have been given that early notice that there will be no internet, the fiber optic cables. All right. So the question is here, Jain, can the third force turntables beat frontrunners in 2022 poll? That is One Kenya Alliance, and now people are saying that it's the third force. First force, in whichever form you look at it, with no particular order, is that of the Deputy President and ODM leader Raila Odinga, and then now we have One Kenya Alliance. People are now touting it to be the third force, but the question is, will it have any effect on the litmus come 2022?
And speaking of the third force, the One Kenya Alliance movement, there's a particular piece here that I've just mentioned that has been featured on the front page, where they were presented with a report by a technical team on Tuesday, which was analyzing the principles of the third One Kenya, hear me saying third alliance, of the One Kenya Alliance movement. And as they have already made public, they will be making, or rather naming the flag bearer for the One Kenya Alliance movement in September. But before then, there was an assessment that was done on the four leaders, and which suggested that Mr. Musalia Mudavadi and Kalonzo Musyoka are the front runners. However, the Oka leaders are convinced that President Kenyatta is unlikely to endorse any of them, and they believe that the head of state is grooming ODM leader Raila Odinga to take over. Now, as per this paper, they have learned that ANC and Ford Kenya, as well as the Wiper Democratic Movement, have all convened their respective parliamentary group meetings tomorrow to formally start the process of pulling out of the NASA alliance. And as per the NASA agreement, it states that if 3 coalition members withdraw, then it stands dissolved. Okay, that is where we are when it comes to the NASA team in regards to it being dissolved. They are set to have their parliamentary group meetings as of tomorrow to start the processes of pulling out of the alliance as they forge forward with the One Kenya Alliance movement. The third force, are they? Well, as we always tell you, politics is a game that you can never predict. Today is like this, tomorrow it's the other way around. The day after that, it's flipped, it's horizontally flipped. So we just wait and see how it represents
politicians understand this game pretty well. They understand, they know where they're headed to is a critical moment.
Very.
And they understand each other so well. So any attempt to form any third force, whichever way, an alliance talks, at this point, this is the time they say that they don't trust each other.
Absolutely. Those are actually the words of ODM leader Raila Odinga, who said in as much as they are looking to dissolve and withdraw from the alliance, he is still keen to ward off any supremacy wars that will and ensure that other regional kingpins stick by him firmly as we gear up to the 2022 general elections. Well, that is that. Allow me to deviate a bit from politics and come to this particular story here. This is actually the story that is on the header of the front page of the Daily Nation, and it's in regards to ALSA drugs being used for abortions. So unprofessional chemists are illegally selling the medicine without a prescription, and this is a spot check that was actually done by the writers of this particular story, where it has emerged that so many women are increasingly sorting to prescription drugs to terminate pregnancies, and which in the long run is causing such untold suffering. So one of these drugs that is common drugs, mind you, that is being used for abortions is meant to treat ulcers and is supposed to be sold only with a prescription. But in Nairobi and other major towns, you can stroll into any chemist, ask for this drug, and it will be sold to you over the counter. And the price ranges from anywhere between 1,000 to 4,000 Kenya shillings, depending on the location of the chemist. And they actually went to chemists which they haven't named around the Nyamakema area, and they were sold for this drug for 1,500 Kenya shillings. But the chemist that was actually attending to them inquired as to how far this lady was in with the pregnancy. She was told 4 months, and then this chemist went on to offer a better alternative to terminate the pregnancy. And this one was sold to them for 5,500 Kenya shillings. They did the same to another chemist that is situated along the Tomboya Street. They were given the same drug for 4,000 Kenya shillings and an extra 500 for antibiotics. This is something that these chemists have been doing, because when one was told that they didn't have the money to actually pay for this particular drug and they requested to come back later, the chemist told them that sayo haitawezekana jumdosi atakuwa around.
Okay, that's... What do you make of that, Jain?
You know, first of all, I like the fact that they have withheld the names of these particular drugs for public safety concerns, to avoid it being misused. But then again, it's scary because this is a drug that is meant to treat ulcers, and if you have had an experience with ulcers, basically ulcers are wounds within, from the inside of your body, or even on the outside on your tongue. You can have ulcers in your mouth, but for most people ulcers occurs in the stomach, and that is an open wound that is meant to be treated with these particular drugs. And now it is being used to terminate pregnancies, and they say that it can terminate pregnancies up to 4 months. A 4-month-old pregnancy, that is about 16 weeks. And this is something that is being sold over the counter. We are living in dangerous times. I do not advocate for abortion.
But you see, the law provides for that particular, that window. at what point
the exception.
Exactly. At what point one should procure an abortion.
But that has to come from a medical professional,
exactly.
A qualified medical professional who deems the pregnancy a risk to the mother's life.
What really happens is that some of these, that's what we call illicit pregnancies, which were not planned for. So, you know, for lack of exposure and just putting yourself into unwarranted ridicule, people go, you know, for shortcuts, which at the end of the day, you know, sadly, always turn out to be so tragic.
But you know, this is a manifestation of a deeper rooted problem. This goes back to, and this is a conversation I've had on our Family Check segment. When, as a parent, are you having this conversation with your children about their sexuality?
And at what age should they start?
And at what age? Are you waiting until something happens so that you can talk about it, or are you empowering them with the proper information at the proper age in quantities and quality that they can understand?
Yeah.
You see?
And I think it's out there that both ladies and gentlemen, in whichever way, if at any point one would want to procure an abortion, then the best way is to go the proper medical way. The proper medical way, and seek medical attention first and a professional view on how it can be done properly. Because when you're taking, you know, medication meant to cure ulcers,
and you know it will have other consequences.
Exactly. In the long run, it will. In the long run, it will.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right.
It's very sad. Very sad.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a story here for those people who are already have Huduma numbers. I have mine. Your Huduma number may be useless in 8 days. That's according to the newspaper here. Members of Parliament failed to agree on 23 laws declared illegal by High Court despite a 9-month window. So, yeah. In 8 days' time, your Huduma number could be declared useless because Parliament failed to rescue the law that created Huduma number, as well as 22 other controversial statutes which the courts had directed they be regularized in 9 months. Now, High Court last year declared that the laws illegal since the National Assembly passed them without consensus from the Senate, but gave Parliament grace period to regularize them, failure to which the court orders could kick in. So here's the thing. It emerged yesterday that the two houses of Parliament have not sat or engaged just 8 days to the July 29th, 2021 deadline. So yesterday in court, the houses continued to read from the different scripts. National Assembly lawyer Paul Mwiti asked the court to overappeal judges Asike Makhandia, Mumbe Ngungi and Agnes Murgor to extend the period, arguing that that failure to do so will create a crisis in 8 days. So if in 8 days both houses, that's the Senate and the National Assembly, will not agree, then I'm afraid that my Huduma number will be useless. I'm talking about mine. What about yours? It will be affected. So we'll have to accuse our legislators. Yeah, the court gave the orders, but as it is, there's some back and forth on that. Okay, still on court matters, union to court, in court to block university reforms plan. Now a union has challenged a decision to restructure the University of Nairobi. University's academic staff union, that is WASU, in a case filed before the Employment and Labor Relations Court, argues that the Commission for University Education, CUE, and Ministry of Education were not involved or consulted before the decision to scrap some colleges. Now, WASU says that its members are now facing imminent job losses despite having binding contracts. Now, the union further claims that some of the ongoing students have been left hanging after courses they were undertaking were merged with others, or the department's roles taken away. So the University of Nairobi, for the last 2 or so weeks, have been on the rocks with the students, and even earlier this week, CS Magoha stopped some of the restructuring taking place at the university there. And then That is now what is happening at the university, and therefore they are now in court saying that, the reforms plan at the University of Nairobi is illegal, and they want the Vice Chancellor, Professor Stephen Kiama, to be stopped from undertaking such reforms at the court. All right. So that's as far as that is concerned. We are waiting to see how it will happen, and of course, if it's effected, then it will give some lifeline to the students and even the university workers. So this is it. National Lands Commission receives 740 historical land injustice claims ahead of deadline. Commission's chairman, Gershon Otachi, said that the deadline to submit such complaints expires in September 21st. The National Lands Commission has so far received 740 complaints on historical land injustices, and he said that the nature of the claims are the same across all the regions and follow specific patterns that relate to colonial replacement, inadequate land adjudication, incomplete land acquisition, natural resources conflict, evictions, and natural disasters. So September 21st is the deadline, and they are working on that. Jain, billionaire trader charged with the tax evasion of 2.5 billion shillings. I will tell you more on this. What do you have, Jain?
Let me start with this story here. Let me flip back. I tend to disorganize my paper, but this is in regards to COVID-19, as it has emerged that the Delta variant could be more hazardous, and especially to our children, than the adults. And this is a study that was conducted by the, let me see, where is this college? Yes, scientists at the Imperial College of London. It's yet to undergo peer review, but this report indicates that the Delta variant affects children more than the Alpha and the Beta variants. So parents have been asked to ensure that young people strictly observe the COVID-19 containment measures to help curb the spread of the virus, and especially among our children. But that has still proven to be a bit hard, because this research has also found that there was a 5-fold increase in COVID-19 cases among children aged between 5 and 12 years old. And this is infections from this fourth wave that mostly is featuring the Delta variant. So looking at the participants, it suggested that there is a more direct link between infections and hospitalization among young children, and especially grown-ups who are yet to be vaccinated and do not have could not provide a vaccination history. And this has also been attributed to the increased social interaction among children and young adults as schools remain open. So even as our children are at home for this week-long break, we need to also take precaution and remind them to stay safe. I know it's hard for our children to play while wearing masks, but it comes to a time where you have to put your foot down and ensure that your child is actually keeping themselves safe, because once they contract this virus, trust me, it will ravage your entire household. Now, coming to the counties, there is a potential lawsuit that would see almost all of the 47 counties have to refund monies that they collected from motorists and traders. So this came in a landmark judgment where the Supreme Court stopped this devolved units from imposing taxes for services that are offered by the national government. So this meant that the counties that have been collecting revenue on amenities that are under the purview of the central administration will have to refund this money that they have been collecting illegally. Okay. It goes on to say that counties can only charge for services if the roads accessed by motorists are within their purview and the purview of the devolved unit and not under the purview of the national government, and they could lose millions of shillings in revenue that they have been collecting from trucks that move goods from their counties, from their borders through roads that have been managed by the national government. And looking at in Mombasa, a county like Mombasa, they have been collecting at least 3,000 per truck. 3,000 per truck, those that are ferrying, that are transporting minerals to the Mombasa port. So let's see how this will go. Will they surely refund these monies? Millions, and possibly could be spilling over to the billions. We'll see. Victor.
Let's play a bit. And did you know that it's just a day to Olympics? Just 1 day to go. All right, so before we take a break, let me give you facts about Olympics.
Shoot.
Jain, did you know that the first Olympics games took place in which year? Make a guess. Tereng, which year?
Unanimulika, man.
Which year? Anybody?
Cheza chini.
Anybody in the gallery? My director. The first Olympics games took place in 776 BC, before Christ. So Jesus came, akapata watu, people were doing Olympics already. That is BC, 776 BC. He came, found people were playing boxing, javelin, discus.
Who called it Olympics back then?
I wonder. So this is the story. The first Olympic Games took place in 776 BC. The original Olympics began as part of an ancient Greek festival which celebrated Zeus, the Greek god of sky and weather. Now the whole competition lasted for up to 6 months.
Sparta!
6 months. And included games like wrestling, boxing,
yes,
long jump, javelin, discus, and chariot racing. Before Christ, people were playing boxing and discus and long jump. I don't know how.
Their version of Olympics wasn't our version of Olympics. And that can make sense, even from the historical movies that we always get to see.
Yeah, so you do your first round of the boxing, tang, then you go another one after 2 weeks. You boxed with so and so, come back again, do discus. I don't know how, what was their kind of medal?
I think it was just glory and silver coins.
Silver coins?
Yes.
Something of that kind. So it started before Christ was born. Jesus came, went, and we are still playing.
Iko sawa.
Tunacheza tu bado. Okay.
All right, but with that, I think it's about time we take our first break. Stay with us. We will be back with so much more that we have lined up for you on Good Morning Kenya today.